Okay, am I live? Good afternoon, students. Welcome back. I trust that you had a good break, that you all re-energized for what they call the graveyard shift. I hope you won't fall asleep. So we stopped on slide number 29, and I mentioned, just to recap, that that's the nice slide which shows exactly what's happening in multiple organizations. But this will only work when the reciprocating company has similar systems. So what we are finding nowadays that because of the huge IT setup costs involved in setting up these businesses with information systems, the information systems outlay is quite huge, and then these SMEs or micro enterprises don't have the infrastructure and the cost to set up so they can form the inter-organizational systems with the parent company that they're dealing with. So that's the one hindrance that's preventing us to work as a smart city or a smart organization or a smart unit, is the startup and setup cost. But saying that, now that everything is in the cloud, which I will speak a bit later on what the cloud is all about, we don't have to outlay a lot of money for setting up all the infrastructure, because like I said, most of the equipment and the software can actually be rented nowadays, and as the company starts to increase its revenue, they will then buy these the equipment as they see needed or see fit. So that shouldn't be a stumbling block when companies say to you, we don't have money and the infrastructure to do or conduct electronic business with you. That should be the last excuse on the agenda. So let's go to the next slide, which is slide number 30, which speaks about support for organizational employees. Will you just move that slide, please? So this is a very important slide, and it deals with you, the actual person doing the so-called TPS work, or the data collection, or the section of work in the company that's crucial for correct reporting in the company. And if you don't request the required support in order to do your job efficiently, then it could be problematic for senior managers or managers above you when they're getting wrong information. So clerical workers, also known as TPS workers or transactional processing system workers, that's the sort of name that they've been categorized under that category because of the important work that they do within the company. So this slide works in conjunction with the previous slide. So you have basically three types of workers that you have there, and this dashboards and expert system, which I'll go through now very carefully with you. So we have something called the clerical workers, which I spoke about. That is you, that's creating all the data input, which is very important. I spoke at length about that. And then the next one is knowledge workers. Now, information systems or professional employees that are experts in a particular subject area. So where and how this came about was many years ago, before we had information systems, there were people doing a particular job repetitively. So for example, in a finance department, if you have one person who was just doing debtors claims, okay, or just doing debtors, and that person did a job for the past 25 to 30 years, nothing else but just debtors. He was known as the expert in debtors, and anything you ask him regarding debtors, he would find or have the solution for you. So these are the guys that we call knowledge workers, that they have a certain capability of having expertise in a certain area that they've been doing repetitively, not because they didn't have opportunity to move further or beyond that. Maybe they chose that this is this is the area that I like, so I will do this work repetitively. So you would also say there are other people in other functional departments that are sort of knowledge workers as well, but then they have two or three different variants of the knowledge that they have. In other words, they're called multi-skilled workers. So we have this type of workers in many companies, and the sad thing is when we speak later on about knowledge management systems, that when these workers walk out by the door, or when they are retrenched, retired, or find other opportunities, that knowledge which they have accumulated over many, many years in the department walks out the door with them. And that's knowledge what we call tacit knowledge. Okay, mean the knowledge which is inherent within themselves. So when we speak about knowledge management systems, I will then touch on this about the knowledge workers. Right? The next area that we speak about is the functional areas, and that information system summarize the data and prepare reports, and mostly meant for middle and senior managers. So the functional area, that is where the data gets and information sort of gets disseminated, and some meaning and some attachments or motivation is sent to that particular area, where the middle managers can make sense of what's happening with that report. Now, these can be paper-based and it can be done electronically, but we are more concerned about doing this electronically because what I discovered many years ago, that when functional managers or people were or managers in the tactical area or middle management, they would receive management information reports, whether it's a summary report or a detailed report, but because they also did not have ITC skills or IT skills, they didn't know how to interpret these reports. So these reports were generated religiously every day, but they didn't apply the knowledge that was on the reports because they were not trained to analyze the data, or sorry, the information that was being produced for them on these reports. So that became a huge problem as well. Hence, in the previous slides, we said that the job of the middle managers could be reduced because of these certain caliber people that refuse to analyze management information system reports, and now the intermediaries or the people below or the people above can read these reports and make sense out of it. So yes, it does reduce jobs for people that refuse to upskill themselves. The next thing we're going to speak about is BI, or commonly known as business intelligence. And what business intelligence does is it provides computer-based support for complex, non-routine decisions. Now these are all things we're coming into the sort of more high-level stuff now, where you need to start thinking about these levels if you have not thought about already where you see yourself in the company and what you want to do in the company. If you like to analyze data and look for patterns and trends, then this area of BI, which is quite a new, not a new, but it's still a very much used area today in many companies, where they want people to do forecasting, scenario planning based on the information and the data that they receive from the data warehouse and data marts. And that's also a nice area that you can branch into, right? And then the second last one is the expert systems. So these are systems that attempt to duplicate work of a human being by applying some reasoning capabilities. So as you can see, where we're going with all of these support that we're talking about. So eventually we end up with robotics, where we allow the robots to do all this work for us. So coming back to expert system, you want to know what's an expert system? Is specialized information that's been captured digitally so that the computer can interpret it for the professionals. For example, the new trend now is when you're taking x-rays. I'm just giving you an example. So x-rays are taken, and of course we have computerized systems that know of every single x-ray that can be taken in the body. Whether it's a normal x-ray, whether it's CT scan, whether it's a MRI scan, whatever scan that can be done on an x-ray, they've accumulated all those x-rays, okay? And then what they've done, they've got a set of expert of radiographers to analyze each of these x-rays and provide the information on what could go wrong and what could be, what they see on the x-ray. So that's basically what the radiologists will do. They will look at your x-ray and say, okay, the bone here is fractured, it was a hairline crack, it was a clean crack, and this is what they see. So if you notice that the that the radiologist report is very simple, straightforward, maybe 3 lines maximum, and then they would provide that then to the referring doctor, who then make a diagnosis and for further treatment. So the expert systems now has all this knowledge in the system. So in years to come, or happening now already, you wouldn't need radiologists to look at these reports, because everything has been done already by the expert systems. And of course, the doctor that looks at the report will also look at it, because he's also able to analyze and read an X-ray, and he'll be able to verify whether this information is correct. So that's just to give you an idea of where and how expert systems are coming into play and how we are using it. Earlier this morning, I spoke about the Perseverance lander that landed on the Mars planet. There they also used expert systems, because there was some fuzzy logic, a new term I'm introducing, fuzzy logic that was also incorporated in that particular systems, where if there's a boulder, if in the place of the landing site, or there's a hill, that the system would automatically find the right place to land the Mars Perseverance rover, not to damage the equipment. So those are all pre-programmed, and using cameras and artificial intelligence and GPS systems, the lander knew exactly where it needed to land and how to land. So this is how we utilize and how we employ all these technologies in future exploration and current exploration and in our daily work lives. The point that I want to make here is that these systems are all readily available. It's just that we need to find the person within the company to make use and to show us how all these systems are being used. And in the smaller companies, we don't have budget for this type of person to be there to help people. They will probably just send you on trainings, the right time to go and learn some skills on MS Office or Teams, whatever, and that is it. But if you have a person that's an IT person that's based in your company, that's looking at new technologies, how to use technologies that are out there, how to use technology to increase the business processes in the company, and how to make staff to work smarter, that is where you would grow your business, and how to work smarter in your company, not work harder. And then the last part is the dashboards, and that is providing a rapid access to timely information. So as an executive in your company, you would want to come to work in the morning and just have a quick look and see what is the health status of my company before we do any work. And based on all the systems that I spoke about, and information technology and the computer networks and all the data gathering tools that we spoke about and how it's being analyzed in the background, you want to see on the dashboard, listen, this is the health of my sales, this is my expenses, this are the bad debts, these are people I didn't collect, these are the breakages, X, Y, Z. As you will see when you're driving in your motor vehicle in a car, what is the temperature of the car, what's the fuel in a car, what speed you're driving at, and all the other gauges. It's exactly the same. It just gives you an overview of what your company is before you go and do anything else, okay? Before you go and fiddle around and figure out why things are happening, you want to have an overview of what's actually happening in your company. So I spoke about the knowledge workers being tacit knowledge and explicit knowledge. Explicit knowledge is knowledge that you can see with your eyes. Tacit knowledge, explicit knowledge is visible knowledge, working knowledge that you can see. If you're doing an experiment, you know how an experiment is done. That is explicit. Tacit knowledge is knowledge that's hidden within you, that's in your head, that's in your memory, that you've done over many years. And some people don't want to share that tacit knowledge, because they think if you're going to share the tacit knowledge, you're going to take the jobs away from them. So, like I said, when staff leave, they leave with that knowledge. And then the functional area can also be called as transactional processing area, because that works very closely with the middle managers to ensure that they're doing the correct data is being analyzed and making correct decisions. And in business intelligence, looks a lot at databases, because the way business intelligence works is about analyzing huge volumes of data to find patterns and trends. But we will talk about that later on. And the dashboard section is mainly used for senior managers when they look at the dashboard to see what's the health status of my company. So that's just give you an idea of the type of support that you can use information technology to really assist you in your business. So like I said, if you have technology and if you use it properly to help your business, you shouldn't have a business failing, put it to you that way. It should be a very rare incident if your business runs into losses, if you have all the correct information systems, and of course, like I said earlier, the most important person behind all of the systems are people. And if you have the right people with the right skills, then you shouldn't be having a problem with your business at all, because if you have bad debts already upfront, a couple of weeks upfront, you should be getting notifications on the system as a warning light flashing at you. Listen, supplier ABC did not pay, it's 30 days overdue. Cut supply to them immediately, send out the warning letter, send out the payment for request to recoup your money. Now, if you don't have those systems in place and you're dependent on the person to do that, that person could be going on leave, that person could be sick, that person could be forgetting about that there's a bad debt or supplier that hasn't paid you. So that is when the business starts going into problems and running into problems and then maybe closing at the end of the day. So systems are there to protect you from failing if used correctly, and if the right people, again, people behind systems will make sure that your business remains a success. That's very important. So now I'm come to network architectures, okay, and network designs. So basically, I touched about networks earlier on and the various types of networks. I just mentioned the local area network and the wide area network and the enterprise network. But today we'll just go a little bit more. So networks, as you can see on the slide, can be categorized even further. Your PAN, the personal area network, meaning you can even have a network in your house, because now I spoke about that the kids today are quite literally digitized. Okay, every child in your home, and when they go to school, they're supposed to have a laptop now. So they'll all be sitting in their room doing their own things, and you can create a home network to see what your child is doing, what the work they're doing, and you can create your own little network in the comfort of your home. That's called the personal area network. Okay, very closely related to your home area network. The two are interrelated. And your local area network, I spoke about that in your company, where you have your local area network. The local area network is also known as an extranet, the intranet. Okay, intranet and extranet. Extranet, we have the same business units within the same company on the same platform. Okay, moving data between the same company. For example, all the spa stores, for example, that's family owned or individually owned and controlled by corporate. So they will be on an extranet, because let's say spa has a promotion and they want to inform all the spa outlets, and listen, promotion is only for stores in Durban, and all the people on the Durban extranet will see the promotion. So they use an extranet for that. And then you got your intranet amongst staff members within the company talking about various issues. And then the metropolitan area wide network, that is various companies spread across different geographical areas. And of course, the one that we are mostly comfortable with, or most of us are using, is the wide area network, where we are conducting business with our business partners across different regions. And most of you are probably using this when you are dealing with your suppliers, because you might have a supplier that's sitting in Germany, or a supplier that's sitting in Cape Town, and you're based in Pretoria. So you need to connect with them using your inter-organizational systems, so you can remain in touch with them and monitor what they are doing. So these are what the different types of network architectures and designs are all about. And that is how we remain connected with all our suppliers, customers, and that's how we create the enterprise-wide situation. All of us are linked together. That's why it's called smart city, smart country, smart home, smart university, because of the interconnectivity. Because as more and more people get onto the internet or onto the various network platforms, the cheaper, so to speak, the connectivity should become, because of the people that's joining on. So, just to see if you're all back with me, which are the two most common networks that you guys think of as being used at the moment? I just want to see if all of you are back. Can someone just answer this question? Which are the two common networks that you know of that's currently being used? Anybody?
I think it's LAN and WAN.
Here we go. LAN and WAN. Those are the most common networks that we're using. But you know, it's funny enough, sometimes you might be thinking you're working in a WAN, but you're actually working on a MAN. Okay, not in that sense, but in a metropolitan area network. Okay, sometimes these acronyms can become quite crazy. So sometimes when you're working on a WAN, you then divert yourself onto a MAN or a metropolitan area network unknowingly because of its interconnectivity. So be very careful when you are working on systems, which system you are working on. Okay? So just be alert and aware to that because they are so connected and so quick sometimes that you don't even know that you think you're working with your branch in Johannesburg, you sit in Cape Town, but meanwhile you correspond to someone in Germany. Alright, so just take note of that. So the next slide. I think the next slide is a more in-depth response on packet switching, which also talks about data transfers, basically using the same way, but now this one uses the routers, okay, and the whole message now goes to the router, and the router is an intelligent little device that knows how to route your emails and your attachments to the correct service. Okay, it also makes use of packet switching and makes the computer's communication more efficient and effective. So I went through this earlier, but this is just a nice slide to show you how complicated it becomes. The first slide I showed you was just a lot of diagrams, but here it shows you where the email is, where the packets are, where the computers are, where the internet is working. So this is a more graphical explanation of packet switching and how data transmission works. Alright, so that's just to give you a graphical display of how packet switching works, and this works on the network as well, but currently we're not using satellite, we're not using Thought, we are still using twisted pair, we are still using twisted pair, that grayish, that thin grey cable. I don't think we're using coaxial because coaxial, the speed on coaxial copper cable is very, very slow. So we're using twisted pair and fiber optic. Those are the two main mediums that we are using presently, and fiber optic to convey data on the network. The next slide. Okay, so now you will notice the next couple of slides won't follow a logical approach as to earlier this morning, because I was trying to see what are the important things that you are using at your level in government, okay, and how it will be able to assist you in doing your work. So I would start with something and suddenly you'll find that it jump to something totally different, like to see right now in front of you. So moving around the web, okay, so there are two ways or few ways of moving around. Now, you know, the web is one thing and the internet is another thing, and people always get confused about these two things. They use these two terminologies interchangeably without knowing what they're talking about. Okay, some that's in a way going, what are you going to, I'm going to the web quickly. You ask another person the same question, now I'm going to check the internet quickly. Because they all know they're going to use Google. So to them, they think they're talking, to me it means something different to them because they're not knowledgeable what's the difference between the web and the internet. But let's see, before I explain to you what's the difference, can anyone tell me what's the difference between the web, also known as the World Wide Web, and the internet? Can anyone tell me what's the difference? If you know what's the difference? Okay, nobody wants to take a chance. Okay, so the word internet is actually an acronym, by the way, and it stands for International Network. That's what the internet means. It's an acronym and it stands for International Network. Now, it's a network of computers that's connected at all major strategic points across the world. Okay, and let's say you have a network, you have computer at home, just to give you an idea of how this works, alright? So you've got a computer at home, you connect it via your Wi-Fi, and that's all you know. But now from there, where does it go to? Of course, your Wi-Fi must be connected to an internet service provider, which is either MWeb, iAfrica, Comtel, Telcom, whatever. They are all known as internet service providers. So what happens after that? How do they get connected? They get connected into the main service providers, okay, that's connected to the rest of the world, and that is like a little hub. So that's how you get connected at home to all these various connectivity. That's why that part is known as the internet. How computers are connected to each other. International network of computers around the world that's all connected to each other. Now what is the web? Okay, the web is the pages and the screens and graphics and stuff that you see on your screen in front of you. Okay, so that's when you go online and you see the screens coming, that's actually the web. So there's a difference between the two, but because people have used these terms interchangeably, we all understand when you're going onto the web and using internet that you're actually going onto Google to search for something. So that's basically the difference between the web and the internet. Used interchangeably, but meaning actually two total different things. But we all understand when we say we're going onto the web or we're going onto Google to find stuff on the internet. So the word HTTP, you always see that coming up in your browser, in your search engine. It means Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which means that is the communication standard that the language and the internet uses or the web uses. The web doesn't use any other language. It's a special programming language that has the internet connected computers understand in order to transfer, to send and to receive information. So that's just a bit of background of what's the web and what is the internet. I hope you're a little bit more informed about that now. So how do you move around the web? Okay, I'll use the web for now because that's actually the right word to use. So how do you move around the web? You cannot just take your Explorer on the computer and click on there and move around. No, you got to use a specific program. That's what we call a browser. Okay, this is called Google Chrome, is the most common one. Microsoft Edge is the second one. Firefox, or Mozilla, and of course with the Apple stuff, it's Safari. So those are what we call the browsers or the search engines that we use to move around the web. Okay, it's a search tool to look for information. So when you go onto Google Chrome and you type in what, that's how you are crawling or searching the web for information. Okay, so the internet, so to speak, is made up of a massive network of computers, specialized computers by the way, called routers. Now these routers connect the various computers at the various stations so you can get your information. So for example, if I have a massive computer system sitting in Cape Town, and on that computer system in Cape Town, people were querying about the weather in Cape Town regarding travel up to Table Mountain. So that information is actually stored on that particular computer because a lot of people were searching for that type of information, so it's stored on that server. And let's say you're in Cape Town and you want to find that information. That information will come to you, will return to you in a flash when you type in Google, weather in Cape Town regarding Table Mountain, and in a couple of seconds you find, hey, this internet is very fast. You think it's fast because that information was queried by somebody else before you, and that information is now stored on that particular computer right there. Okay, that's why it comes up so fast. But let's say you want to know about, and you're sitting in Cape Town, and you want to know about a book that is stored, that has been launched in America. Now you know from the time you press enter on your computer at home, it goes to your internet service provider in Cape Town, then it goes to the local main service provider, then it's got to go through the undercable sea to America, then it's got to go to that route until it finds the place where someone searched for something similar. Sometimes you say the internet or the web is slow. And the reason why it's slow is because the information is not readily available at the nearest computer that is located to you. And that is why we have these various delays in getting information on the web. So do you understand that part? Okay, it's not that your computer is slow. Yes, it could be that you might be having an obsolete or very slow computer that could cause that. Remember, the more RAM I spoke about this morning, the more faster your computer is. You've got an i7, the faster the processor will work to try and retrieve that information for you. But if that information that you're asking is not close enough to you, it will take a while for you to retrieve. Okay, also if you're working on your internal internet in your office and there's a lot of people working on a particular program, for example, let's say you're in higher education and it's now registration and all the students in the country now are trying to gain access, let's say, to a particular university. Let's call it UCT. They all want to apply for ICT because they've seen this lecture and they know it's a good lecture, it will take them further in life, and they all want to apply to ICT. Let's say at UCT, and there's a program called ICT, UCT, and everybody after this lecture goes onto UCT's portal, go to the ICT, and suddenly the system is now got a lot of traffic coming towards that particular program, and then that will also slow your computer down because everyone's trying to gain access to it. Works on a first come first serve basis. Okay, so and it's got a lot of intelligence built around it. That's why sometimes when you go into your portal and work and sometimes very slow, that could be one reason for that. The other reason why it could be slow is either something went wrong with your bandwidth and your and the speed at which your data is traveling. Okay, or a router could have caused a problem, or network cable could have been disconnected. So because it's hardware and software dependent, that all affects the speeds of the computers. Okay, so the router's job is to know how to packet from one source to the next source. Okay, so that's the important job of the router, knowing that the email or the query left Cape Town and it must go to Joburg. The router's got intelligence built into it based on the header, footer, and the body, where that information must go to on the network, through the web, through the internet or connected computers. Okay, so the web is a common exchange area for the dissemination of information. So that's a simple explanation of the web, and you all know it as Google. That's a term we all use. Okay, but the proper terminology is the dissemination of information. Right, so the next slide. Now, you all probably wondered, this is someone's brain. No. This is what I was speaking about earlier on. All those big circles, the big dots, those are all the major computer networks that's got all the short little networks connected to all the various small Ethernet service providers. So if you're sitting on the left hand side and you want to query something on the right hand side, it's going to go through all those channels till eventually it finds information on the right computer. So you see how sophisticated and how complicated the internet is. Now that diagram shows you what the internet is, the interconnectivity of all the computers across the world. And that's in America, by the way. Okay? So how do we get connected to South Africa? Of course, via the underground cable. Underground cable, the cable that runs in the sea that is connected to the various continents. If that cable gets disturbed, then you are disconnected from America. Okay? And vice versa. And that's how the various countries, when they want to disconnect you, they just stop that. Right? You can't get connected to America or whatever. Especially when people are at war. They don't want to talk to each other, they stop the connection to the various countries. So that is how the internet is working, that's how it's connected, and that's how we receive our information from the various countries across the world. Okay, there's something else called, now this is the internet, nobody owns it, it's owned by everybody, but it was originally developed by the United States military when they were trying to experiment on using some secret militaries from secrets from one area to another area to convey the message very quickly. Okay, so they experimented with this and worked, and that's how the internet grew, right? And from there they decided it can work from point A to point B. Why can't we do from point A, B, C, D, and E? And that's how it eventually grew, and that's how we got hold of the internet. But there is another internet that has been developed. Okay, you might or might not know about it. It's called Internet 2. And this Internet 2 was a consortium of about 200 universities working together on a high bandwidth. And this was and this Internet 2 got mostly to do about educational stuff, about education, because you can understand when you want to do your assignment, all of you are going to go onto Google and see what you can find. But as you're going onto Google, you find all these various ads popping up and a lot of distractions, and suddenly you're trying to complete your assignment that's due for Bridgelaw or Palais tomorrow, and you must find the correct solution, and you Googling, and somewhere along the line an ad pops up and it says a certain shop's got a 60% sale, come now, and you want this item, and then you get distracted and you go to the site, and 3 hours later you're still surfing the internet trying to buy goods, but meanwhile your assignment needed to be completed. Right? So that's a distraction that we have on the internet when you're trying to do your work. But now they come up with Internet 2 where there's no ads, no pop-ups, nothing, pure scholarly articles. Something similar to Google Scholar or Scholar Google, where you can go to Google Scholar and find all the related articles, academic articles to whatever topic you are researching. Alright, so I hope you got a good picture now of what the internet looks like and how it's all connected. And as you can see, it's a multitude of computers that's connected across the world that provides you with the source of information that you are receiving. Of course, businesses, society, communities have taken advantage over this because of the reach that it has. Then they created their own websites and their own portals so people can get onto there and see what's happening and how they can get the information. Now, it's all well and good to have the internet and Google and the portals and your company's business on the internet and the cloud. But as we earlier on explained or spoke about, that there are some weird people out there. You know, they want to steal your data, they want to hack into your systems. The virus is not created by the internet itself. Human beings create the virus, believe it or not. Okay, it's created by man, people as in us, like you and me, create viruses. Yes, there are some destructive people out there. And how did just to give you a story, how do you think the viruses actually came about? Can anyone tell me? How did the virus come? Why would someone create a virus? And how did it come about? Can someone just tell me very quickly? Anybody? Don't worry, nobody can see you. They can only hear you. And they also don't know. So tell me.
I think it might be if you want to explore a system, in particular the IT system, how it works, then eventually you end up creating a virus.
There's one explanation. Anyone else with another explanation? The question is, how did viruses come about?
Could it be from that someone was trying to destroy a system created by others or benefit? They are trying to give human benefit of the doubt, like it was initially created for good, to try to destroy systems that are not healthy.
Okay.
And late time was then.
Okay, that's another explanation. There's another explanation. Any more? There's almost 250 of you online at the moment. Only two people answered. I'm sure some of you must be having, but don't Google the question, please. Okay, let me explain to you what happened, how these viruses came about. So when computers started coming into the fore in the 1960s and 1970s. We only used to have something called mainframes. The personal computer wasn't around. Okay, personal computers came a couple of years afterwards. So IBM, by the way, created the first computer, and they had this big, massive mainframe. That mainframe was probably the size of your office or your office block, because there was big transistors like in the old transistor radio. Then they had small capacitors and stuff like that. So then they used to have programmers, and when the programmers used to create these programs, they used to firstly create the programs, and then they had to compile it, then they had to test it and run it and see if it works. So that was quite a long and laborious process. Let's say they created a program to figure out how to do a payment, for example, in debtors and creditors. So the two programmers will sit and work together and they'll write this program. But before they can actually implement this new application, they needed to test it to see if there's any bugs in there, or if it's working right, if it's adding up right, putting the right balances and doing what it's supposed to do. So if you understand programming, for those of you that have done programming, so you get the code, the programming code, and you write the programming. The next step is now to compile it. Now the compiling part takes very, very long, because it takes all that code that you've written and it puts it in the correct sequential order in order for the program to run in the right order. Now that compiling part took up to 2 to 3 to 4 hours to go through the system and compile it and wait and wait. So what the programmers did, while they were waiting for the program to compile, can you please mute your mics? So while the program was sitting there idling away, waiting because they were programmers and all they knew was to program. So while they were waiting for the program to compile itself, they got bored sitting around doing anything. So what they then did was, they created a small little application, and they said, okay, I'm going to create an application. Programmer A said, I'm going to create a small application, and I want to see if you can destroy the application to see what I created. So they would compete against each other to see how we can destroy the application. So they would, and this was done just to kill time, by the way. So they created this application, and one programmer said, I'm more clever than you, I can destroy your program. So eventually that became a norm, and people said, okay, you know what? So it got into some weirdo's head. So these people are creating programs. If I can create a program that can affect that program, but I know what I did to affect that program, and if they can't get that program right, they must come to me for an antidote, and I can make money out of this deal, right? So he then created this sort of a bug, and he added it to an email, whatever, and sent it to you, and he messed up your program. Now you're totally stuffed. Your files are all corrupted. You don't know what's happening. You got no firewall protection, nothing, and you ask people to solve it. And that is how these viruses came about. So sometimes you might ask, are viruses created intentionally? You know the answer. In any game there's money to be made. Suddenly all these massive McAfee, what's the other one? Quite a few. Norton. All these people started coming up with antivirus packages. Now I'm not saying it because I'm not sure where my video is going to go to, so I can't say this. But you can judge for yourself. Are viruses created intentionally or unintentionally for money-making purposes? You be the judge of that. You can decide. But that just give you a brief idea where these viruses came about. And of course, some people do it destructively to mess up your computers, to get into your programs, into your bank account, and to take money from you. But we need to protect ourselves, irrespective of all these viruses and security threats that's out there, because remember, we are working in a digital environment, and there are people that know a little bit about computers, and they get bored and they would want to do something, so they create this nonsense just to irritate us. So companies have to protect their data. Because your information is very, very important. And of course, when you go onto the site, you have the assurance from the various banks and various companies that your information is protected and won't be disseminated, but you know what happens after that, it just goes haywire sometimes. So companies have created firewall. So the firewalls are basically virus protection that will look and see if there's anything funny in the code that's coming into the system, and if it is funny, it will stop it right there. And then it will go into a junk mail, it will go into a spam folder to say, listen, I don't recognize these files. If I do recognize it, it's going to mess up the system, so I'd rather save it somewhere. You can go in there and decide whether it's a good email or a bad email, or a good file or a bad file. So the companies, if they don't do this, and your company is down based on a virus threat or some security threat, it loses money. Okay, and then we come into this other topic, which is another topic on its own, and that is called cyber crime or soft crime. Okay, even more dangerous than hard crime, because let's say today you have whatever amount of money in your account, and if you know how to get to the bank system and change your money, change people's accounts, you're a poor man tomorrow. Soft crime. Okay, it's even more dangerous than hard crime. Not killing anyone, but it's still crime. So cyber crime is unfortunately is on the increase at the moment, because there are just too many computer whiz kids out there that know so much about information technology, and they find ways to I mean, there was a 16-year-old boy, American boy, that hacked into the White House computers. Just to give you an idea of what they can do with technology. Okay, that is why your work or your environment have all these firewalls, have all these securities, and all these antivirus programs on your computer to protect your information. And it's very important that you must have it. And how to protect your data, your information? If you've got an external hard drive, if you've got space on the internet, which calls OneDrive, whatever systems your company use, you must back up your information regularly, right? Regular backups are very important, because if your data is gone, it's corrupted, it's finished, you lost, you've got to start it from scratch. And there's a lot of war stories about many companies that lost everything due to poor backup systems. Okay, there's another system called DRP, Disaster Recovery Program. There's a whole new topic on its own, where we have a disaster recovery management, looking after disaster recovery, where they actually animate a disaster recovery, that the whole system is down, how do we get our systems up again, and how long it took us to get our systems up. So that's a whole new topic on its own, but at least I'm telling you about it so you know. Does your department have disaster recovery programs? Does your department have regular backups? Are backups being done regularly? Are you saving your work regularly? Are you doing that? How safe is your information? How much do you value your information? So you must answer these questions. Don't just take it for granted that the system administration is backing up your data in the evening. Okay, you must go to them and ask them, listen, I hope our work's been backed up. If something goes wrong, it's going to take us a while to go back, and we have to recapture everything. You can't get the system, and that is termed downtime. Okay, when the systems are down and you need to recover, it's downtime. Anything to do with downtime is money lost to the business. So we want to stay about, and that's how companies' progress and success is measured by the amount of hours the system remains running all the time and working and ticking over, because time is money. We cannot afford to have downtime, and downtime in information systems is a lot of money that goes down. You know, when the internet is down, how you struggle, how you swear, how you perform, because you cannot do your work. Okay, and how much money is lost when the systems are down. So it's very important that we have our security threats, our disaster recovery, our backups, and all of things must be done on a regular basis. Okay, and also we talk about the human errors after this. So cyber crime, and also better known as cyber terrorism, is on the increase at the moment, because money can be made quite easily. Okay, and especially nowadays, let me warn you about this and inform you. You probably know about it. When you get these calls, hello, I'm from Absa Bank, we just verifying your account, and they give you the whole lovely story, and that's the worst thing you can ever do, is to give your details and your ID number. Right? You don't ever do that on your phone. Never, no matter how convincing it is, just put the person off or cut the call. Don't ever push it. As soon as you give your ID number or some identification, you gone. These guys are clever buggers. They're very clever. Okay, they just need one piece of information and then you are taken for a ride. Happened to many people. I'm not making these stories up, but let me just tell you about it. Okay, so we talk about PayPal, we talk about Uber, we talk about Amazon, where you need to put in your credit card details. How safe are these portals? Okay, ask yourself. They say to you, you know what? You put in your credit card details in there. You put in your PIN number, the verification number, and it's saved in a wallet. Let me tell you this, for what it's worth. Anything that is created by man can be destroyed by man. Okay? Software is created by man, it can be destroyed by man. It just takes another person to find out where the loophole is, something went wrong, where the loophole is, and then they're in your system. So use these things wisely. Okay? Don't go to overboard and put your credit card details where it's not required. Okay? So please try and remember that. Especially Uber, where people are Ubering and the credit card details on there. In South Africa, we've got the cash option. I suggest rather use that. Overseas, it's only credit card. Right, so now we come to the next slide. I'm going to be stopping at, gee, it's 3 o'clock already. Okay, I'm on slide 89, there's 87 slides. Okay, let's see how far my voice can take me. So, the biggest threat, by the way, like I said earlier on, I asked you what are the biggest two main issues with computers, and you said to me it was procedures, and I said to you the second one was people. And as I alluded to earlier on, man created computers, software, and can also destroy it. So the biggest problem we have is human errors, carelessness with laptops. Okay, people don't shut the laptops down, they don't have passwords, and it's very easy to find passwords nowadays. They've got password detection programs that can run through cycles of passwords. Name of your dog, name of your cat, name of your house, name of your birthday, month, date. Those are all very, very, very big passwords. The best password is, by the way, or the strongest password is if you take your name, okay, and surname, and you take on the top row of the keyboard, you find all those exclamation mark, hash, and pound signs, and all of those things. You put those in between your names and stuff, so you know if your name is Peter. So P, instead of putting an E, you put an exclamation mark, and you put a T, and instead of the E, you put a pound sign, and it's R, instead of the R, you put a dollar sign, and you make it complicated like that. The program that's running to find passwords, very, very difficult to find those types of passwords. So make it complicated for your own use, so you know that your data cannot be compromised. Okay. Carelessness with computing devices, your memory sticks. In fact, you've got my memory sticks still there. Memory sticks are just left around, and it's important information on there. Okay, it's just carelessness. I've just said, now he's got my memory stick, there was all my stuff on it. I forgot about it. But they just need one memory stick and all your data is on there and then you're gone. But some people have a spreadsheet, because they've got so many passwords, they put their username and password and they save it, because they can't remember all the passwords. I'm one of them that do that. Okay, but I've got a heavy password on that one, right? But some people don't even have passwords on it. And then opening questionable emails. If you know an email that looks questionable to you and you don't trust it, just delete it, because it could be a virus in there. Okay? And then internet surfing. The internet sometimes warns you because of the firewall protection that your company and your bosses have put onto the system. Don't go into it, rather stay away from it. And of course, I spoke about the poor passwords. Okay? So it's very, very difficult if we have sophisticated systems, but then you, the human being, are not doing the right thing to ensure that your data is protected. um, there's something called social engineering. And I've done this 3 times today when I was in certain areas where people are busy working on the laptops and they just start punching in their passwords. As I flew into Durban, I was sitting next to a person and she was busy working on a cell phone and she would put the password, and I could see what the password was and she went into it. So if I memorize the password and I go somewhere and put it in, I can get access to a data very easy. So social engineering, be very careful, okay? No matter how close you are to that thing, putting a password in, walk away and put your password. That is where some people try to be legitimate people, friends, but they're after your password. Okay, many years ago we did a test while I was still in the corporate world, but this was a test and we knew what we were doing. But we wanted to prove something to the then IT manager that our systems were vulnerable. But it was a planned move, okay, or planned event. So you asked a person from outside to come in one evening into the place where we were working. So we gave him a fake ID, so he could get past security, and he had a handbag or a laptop bag, and he said he's coming in to do some repairs on the computers, and here's his ID card. Security, not knowing anything, let him come in. He got into the computers, into the building, found the first computer, looked around, and he saw on the calendar there was a password written, got into the computer and got into the system. Within under 5 minutes he did that. Okay, then he walked to the computer room, there was nobody there, there was an operator working there, the operator didn't know this guy for a bar of soap. This guy said, listen, I'm here to do some maintenance, I need to change some cables, I'm from XYZ company. The guy opened the door with the key and the guy went in there, and you could just have disabled or destroyed or taken information away. So that is how simple it is to get into a computer room. But of course we knew about it, we wrote the report up and we told the person, see, this is what happened last night. But this was just a simulation. After that, security needed to be informed who's coming after hours to do what. The people in the computer room informed who's coming to do what on the computers, and proper identification was required. Okay, so I hope your systems, wherever you're working, have this in place. Okay, nowadays we have biometrics, the people that's coming to visit you to do repairs on the computer, they know which person is coming and what he's going to be doing. Because he could be very easy coming in and loading a virus on your computer. And people do this. Okay, so I'm just alerting you to this. If somebody comes to you and says, listen, I need you to work on a computer, and you don't recognize this guy, and he shows you an ID, say, listen, can I just check with the IT people, who are you and what you're doing? Because you may have later complained about something not working on your laptop, and you might have personal details on your laptop. He could be taking someone else. Okay, so be alert to this. Don't just be vulnerable and say, okay, he's the IT guy, he's coming to fix that. No. There are some dangers and wicked people out there that want to get into your computer and steal your information. Okay, so I just want to complete the firewall thing, and then we can call it a day. So the next one here on the screen. So basically the top line is the internet, and your internet service provider normally has a firewall. A firewall, why we call it a firewall, is actually not actually a wall, but it's a wall of protection that protects any incorrect viruses or bad information coming through. So they would filter it first, and then it goes into your computers at home, which you might be having another firewall or virus protection program on your computer just to protect your computer. That's a very simple, plain virus protection to ensure that no viruses come onto your computer, but it can still get through there if the software, antivirus software, is not updated. But when it comes to the firm, you've got the internet, you've got the external firewall, you've got your computers inside that's got a firewall around it, and you've got your personal computer that's got antivirus software on it. So you're protected on 3 levels, okay? Because the company realized that if they are compromised, the data is so sensitive that it can destroy their business. That is why they have all this firewall protection. Sometimes you say, but you know what? I sent you an email, but I haven't received it. The guys say, go check in your spam email. It's sitting there. Because your corporate systems files did not recognize or scan the email and found something wrong with that email. But if you know it's a legitimate email, you can request the system to send you that email or the attachment or whatever it is. Especially with music files and with audio files, you'll find it happening. So that is just the corporate system that's trying to protect its data, because if it gets into the system can be brought down very quickly. So that is why it's very, very important that you have a firewall, which means something similar to antivirus protection systems on your computer, on your internet service provider, and in your internal systems that your company has installed. So students, I think we've done a lot of talking today. I've given you a lot of information. I hope it was all very, very valuable. I hope that you've got a better insight now as to what information systems are all about. Here's another, this is slide 37. I need to go up to slide 88 or 89. Hopefully tomorrow I'll try and get through it much quicker. I think I'm going to actually skip the case studies in between, so that you can still read on your own, but the content is very important that I need to explain it to you. Alright, so I take it that you will go home now, or if you are at home, to go through the other slides to see what is coming, and to make notes on it and to ask me questions what you don't understand on those particular things. Remember, there's no such thing as a stupid question or a silly question. Every single question values an answer, and if I don't have the right answer, I will definitely reply back to you. So I think it's now 3 o'clock. Let me not keep you for too long. I'm very mindful that you've been sitting here for quite a while, staring at the computer, and your eyes and your arms and necks could go into frozen mode. I don't want to be part of that. It's called screen fatigue. It's a new medical terminology that we're using. And try and just relax and read through the work and read through the files and stuff that I've sent you. So, are there any questions before I log off?
Prof,
Proceed.
are we going to have a recap tomorrow?
I don't think there will be time to recap because I've got a lot of more slides to go through, but then I will speak with Prof. Pillay. If all students want a recap, then you must tell me which sections you want me to recap, because there's a lot of information. I cannot recap everything again. I know it's a lot of information and knowledge that I've given you today. This course will take me about 2 months to deliver properly for you to understand. I cannot do it in 6 hours. So that's why I had to just give you an overview, and I try my best to give you real life examples of what I'm trying to get across to you. Okay, so the recap is possible, very much possible. I don't have to be in the studio to do it. I can do it at my home in Cape Town, but we need to set a date and time of what you want me to recap. Then I can do the recap. I don't have a problem.
Do they have the slides?
You got all the slides that's been emailed to everyone, and the notes and everything. It's all there.
Is there someone asking for the slides?
No, Prof. Pillay, I asked him whether he has given all the slides. I don't know how he did it. Is it on the Teams or is it on a special site that he has created for you? But I've given the slides to Prof. Pillay 2 weeks ago. All the slides are available to you.
Yeah, we did receive some.
There's three things that I sent.
We just received the case studies only.
No, I sent 3 things. The case studies, additional reading, and the 87 slides.
Actually, yes.
Yes, we received the presentation from and all the case studies.
So there we go. It was sent. Just check again on the site that Prof. Pillay sent you. Maybe your computer will not be able to download it because they're quite big. Are there any other questions? Okay, so there are no further questions. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for those of you who were brave enough to ask questions. I'm sure tomorrow more of you will be more brave to ask me many questions, and then I'm hoping that you've really learned a lot today, or you've been exposed to a lot of things that you were not exposed to, that you will really use this information to have an impact on your work and more importantly on yourself. So explain what I explained to your family members tonight. At least it will then really sink in and you'll be able to use it in the workplace. That's the only way to understand this, if you explain what I've explained to you to somebody else. Okay? Thanks.
Thanks, Prof.
Thank you. Take care. Enjoy the evening.
Thanks, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. I can see you all very relieved. Okay, you need to mute your mics, otherwise I can hear what you're cooking tonight for supper. Am I still on or off?
Off.
I'm off. Okay. Let's see if Malay is gallivanting.
Let me know, otherwise I can take you back to the hotel.
Sorry?
Let me know if he's coming back, otherwise I can take you back to the
Okay,
hotel.
thanks. Let's see where